Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you, like we are every week, to talk college football, man. How you been?
Not too bad. Went to a cat cafe this afternoon with my wife. It was something that was on her bucket list, and she was not bucket list sounds extreme. So one of the things she wanted to that's a little extreme. Not a bucket list. One of the things she wanted to do this year. It was on just not doesn't have to be a bucket list.
Just a regular
list.
Checklist.
Yeah.
Not a before you die type list. But,
right.
But what makes a cafe a cat cafe other than just having cats roaming around, I'm assuming?
Cats are roaming around, but you have to sign the waiver when you go in. So if they attack you or get you sick or whatever, they're not liable because, I mean,
wow.
I'm talking these are all cats up for adoption. So it's a great cause. You get to go in there and see if any of them you want to take home. I will say I was very much the only male for an extended period of the time here. Cats are just it's for whatever reason. I don't know why, but we were there for a couple hours, got some work done. But man, I was getting sniffles and all that kind of stuff because we talked about it, getting a cat to pair up with Khaleesi the dog over here. But I don't know, man. I like cats. I respect them. The cats making biscuits in there. They do their own thing. Cats are. My wife was having a great time with the laser pointer, just having the cats run all over the area. But yeah, the cat cafe is just a normal coffee shop. But before you can go into the cat portion of the experience, you got to sign the waiver and you get to pick out your coffee and tea or whatever. But because I'm 75 years old, I got my honey green tea before I went in there. But it's a good time, good experience. My wife had fun and. Never been in there. Never done it. Sounds like you haven't either.
I have not done it. A cat cafe sounds like the worst place on earth to me, potentially. I don't even... Oh, man. Just cats, just random cats all around you. They
jump up on you. Cats don't care about personal space because, they jump up on your computer. They're all over. They're everywhere, man.
Yeah, I don't think that would be my spot. To each their own, but... Even a place full of dogs, I don't even feel like I would like that. Just like a dog cafe. So you never went to
Fetch over there in Atlanta? You never did the Fetch Brewery where people take their dogs? I think it's called Fetch, right? Isn't it Fetch? The park brewery and...
It's I'm down when you go to a brewery or something, and it's a couple people brought their dog.
Well, that one's all dogs. But
if the whole thing is to bring dogs, it's this is the activity is the dogs. We can't be. How many things can we really be doing with all these dogs around? Maybe other dogs are better behaved than others, but I don't know. That whole thing just kind of doesn't seem like my cup of tea. I don't know.
What about Tori though? Would she want to go to a cat cafe?
No, definitely not. I definitely don't see Tori wanting to go. We would want to go to the dog thing probably, but we're just we don't know how our dogs would do, so it's we'd be nervous about our dogs and you don't even have a good time because you're just worried about your dogs, and whatever. But we did do something this weekend though. We went to Jim Gaffigan last night, so that was kind of fun. I've never seen Jim Gaffigan before, so
where at?
It was I always forget what it's called. The Cobb
Galleria
Energy Center, I think is what it is.
Well, there's not the Galleria. The one in Gwinnett.
No, it's not Gwinnett Arena. The Cobb one has the same type of. It's the same. It was.
Did it used to be the Galleria?
I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I think it's been this for a while because we saw Bill Burr at the same place.
Okay.
There's Infinite Energy Center at some point, maybe. I'm not
sure.
No,
that's Gwinnett. Gwinnett was.
So that's Gwinnett. See, they've changed the names, but I don't think it's the Gallery. I think it's something different. But it was a good time. This is my birthday week, so it was.
Happy early birthday!
There you go.
When's your birthday?
But, actually, Super Bowl Sunday is my birthday. The Super Bowl's
never
been
on
my
birthday week. No, your birthday week is not this week. You don't.
It's a 7-day grace period, I think. And I think it applies.
Does it? It's a Sunday though. That's the start of a new
February's
week.
a short month. I'm gonna milk this week, so what can you do?
Birthday week. What are you, Matt? You were
No,
a college-age girl over here. Birthday week. Because that was always weird. Because I remember people years ago. It's like my birthday week. What are you talking about? That's not really a guy thing. No guy's ever been like, it's my birthday week. What does that mean? You get the whole week? You get a week for that. The build up. I don't know. I've never been a big birthday guy. Are you a big birthday guy?
No, I'm not really a big birthday guy, and so I think it was also kind of like last minute. Like she got the tickets on like Thursday or Friday. It was like, oh, Jim Gaffigan's in town. Like, well, she did surprise me, so I didn't know who we were going to see.
Oh, so this is a birthday gift.
It was, but it was like it was a birthday gift, but it's like it wasn't.
But you made sure to tell her, like, this doesn't count. Like, I appreciate you hooking me up for this weekend. We had a good time, but this is not. If it's something that I've done with Chase in the past, it doesn't count.
Yeah, Jim Gaffigan's on like a list of comedians I have. It's like I would like to see him at some point.
So was he good?
Yeah, he was good. His opener, I don't know what the guy's name was. He was whatever, but Jim Gaffigan, he was. I feel like he's got his own kind of shtick, and it was like that was funny. We had excellent seats.
Okay.
So got a shout out to Tori. It was an excellent gift.
Do you have any hecklers, or was everybody pretty chill?
No hecklers. I feel like Jim Gaffigan, he's like a clean comedian, so he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would like promote hecklers. You know what I mean?
I don't think any comedian promotes hecklers.
I know, but I feel like
attracts. He doesn't attract hecklers.
Attract. There you go. He kind of talk some shit, and then it kind of gets other people to talk some shit. It's like his jokes all just seem so lighthearted. Like that's like I don't know. The best thing he does is when he's like imitating the audience. He's like, I don't think this guy knows what he's talking. Like that little like soft thing he does. It's just he's a quality comedian. So it was a good show.
I think I told you when I went to LA years ago. I saw that was one of my favorite because I love stand up, and I remember seeing. I think I told you Norm and David Spade and Bill Burr, who did a surprise set. He wasn't advertised, and then Dana Carvey, who was also advertised. But Bill Burr got this girl she said something in the front row, and that was it. And that was a rough back and forth for a solid 10 minutes where Bill Burr really he did not lose the one-on-one with the heckler. I will put
right,
it to you.
and that's why I don't get anyone who says anything at a comedy show. It's just like you're gonna match wits with someone who's on stage right now with a microphone. Like for one.
Also, the crowd's not even for you. The crowd's also against you.
The crowd is not on your side. They literally came to see this guy. He's got a microphone, so already the message is going to be louder, and it's just going to be heard better. It's like you got to be pretty damn clever, or I don't know, something to beat a comedian at that. If I ever get called on, I don't know. I don't want this to be about me. You just you do your thing. Keep doing your show.
Are you and Tori both auditory laughers, or are you just like, that's funny? That was funny. That's a good bit.
I definitely, if it's funny, yeah. I mean, I'll laugh.
I do that too much sometimes where I'm like, that was funny. Like, I don't like that.
There is some jokes, though, when you're sitting there. There's things that are funny that it makes you smile. You're like, that's. But then it's like other people are just like dying at this. It's like, that was a hilarious joke to you. It's like, that's something he said. It was like, that's funny. And
I feel like that's Jim Gaffigan, where he smiles a lot. Crowd. Like you're just smiling through a Jim Gaffigan show, where he's like, "That was nice. What a nice evening." But I don't think I'm ever gonna just, oh my god, that was a good one. I don't think it's ever gonna be me at a Jim Gaffigan show. I don't know. Like, were you in tears from laughing too hard ever?
No, I wouldn't say I was laughing that hard, but there were some really good parts. Like I would say it was
And again, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying he's not that kind of guy where you're like, and it hurts to laugh, and you're like, he's really, really just. It's one after the other where you're just like, I can't breathe because this is funny. This is
not that I'm some stand-up comedian expert, but I would put it. In my experience of people I've seen live, I would put him like a step below like Aziz Ansari. Like he was good. He was a good show. Aziz isn't the funniest comedian I've ever seen, but he was funny. And so they're kind of somewhere around that same level.
Yeah, we saw Sebastian. You didn't believe
Yeah,
I
I definitely put him above both of those guys.
Before he was big. We went in the Buckhead Theater, and he was a small little group, and people didn't really. He wasn't a big name at this point, and it was good. He was now he's like
that was a great show.
I think he's he's probably the biggest selling comic right now. I mean, he's selling out MSG and kind of like the new Jerry Seinfeld in a lot of ways.
We got a couple more comedy shows up in the next couple of months. We got tickets to already too.
Ooh,
so
who else?
We got Sam Morrill tickets.
Sam Morrill.
Week of the Clemson Georgia game last year. Both got COVID, missed it. Gave tickets to one of my friends, and he's like blown up since too. Had like a Netflix special. He was actually open for Aziz Ansari, that one show. And I was like, started following the dude after that because he was hilarious. But yeah, we're seeing him I think in March, and then Nate Bargatze we're seeing in May. He's blowing up too. So
I love his bit about Disney World, where I think, have I sent you that one, or have you seen that one where he's like, "Oh, well, if kids don't remember, I might as well just put them in the closet."
Yeah, you gonna remember any of this? Just look in the corner. Yeah, he just has a new special out too. That's pretty funny.
There you go. I'll have to check that out. Well, that concludes the college or the stand-up comedy minute here on the Chase Thomas podcast. Hey, it's the off season. That's what we do here on the off season. Tennessee takes care of business in a rock fight against Auburn over the weekend. What bums me out, it's like Tennessee
questionable call at the end of the game, or no call, we should say.
You go straight up, and I don't like when guys are going for the foul. Like, his legs are going forward. It's like he's jumping in. He was like almost trying to get Olivier Combois to catch him. Like, I don't like that. Like, when you're trying to win that way.
Because he went straight up, but he did kind of come into him in terms of like letting the shooter come down.
He was trying to draw the foul.
But it was the flailing before the foul got there that it's like, I don't want to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's kind of, I know what you mean on that one. I was a little torn on it, to be honest. I just wanted to give you shit for.
Well, it's also, if you watch the whole game, it's like he got called for it already. Like, they got a technical, because in college basketball, they do the technical for flopping on shots. And Auburn got one for sticking their legs out when they were landing multiple times. So I think it was one of those where you don't get the benefit of the doubt. And they should have known that going in, where it's like they're not going to call that because they've already gotten you for a technical for flopping on these shots before. So if you're going into that final shot looking for a foul, just focus on shooting. Like, focus on getting a good shot up. And if they call it, they call it. But like, my gut was they were not going to do that. But it is what it is. That was rough. But Tennessee beats Florida. They're number 1 this week in the rankings. So I don't know where they'll fall. They'll probably be 3 or 4 or something. But I would be surprised if they're still number 2.
Been a rough couple games in a row for the Bulldogs.
Well, we saw that one coming, Matt Green.
But at least I was at a good one. So
you were at a good one. You timed it well.
You did really. I don't know who beat them last. Was it Auburn? Yeah, Auburn, and then A&M just blasting them. But it's year 1. We'll see.
I always think about Frank Reynolds when he's like, you blasting them. I'm like, I hear his voice whenever it says blasting them. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a show that always makes me laugh out loud. That is a show that I will laugh out loud no matter how many times I watch it. Matt Green, Nigel the Nighthawk, has some stuff he wanted to run by us here on the program before we get into our transfer portal winners. We got 6 teams who I wanted to highlight as winners here. We'll do winners and losers over the next 2 weeks on this very program. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/JaceThomasPodcast. Like and subscribe. Full episodes, clips, all that good stuff popping up on our YouTube page. So if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed there. During the off-season, Matt and I will be doing these pods once a week on Sunday night. So be ready in your podcast feed on Monday morning for that morning commute and all that good stuff. So make sure you're locked in, subscribed, and looking out for the College Football Show that I know so many of you guys like listening to throughout the course of the regular season and playoffs and all that good stuff. So that's our schedule for college football coverage here on the podcast going forward in the off season. But National Signing Day, which is not a big deal anymore. National Signing Day, it's not what Matt and I grew up in. It's kind of weird that it's just those days are long gone, Matt Green. It looks like there will be some changes at some point in the next couple of years, but I don't think the February National Signing Day will ever be the thing. I think if there are changes, it seems like we'll get an early one pushed back to like August or something before the year, and then the second one being after the year. Because I don't think we're going to see it.
I've I've heard there's some pushback, and this is something I never even considered because that's what I've always thought it should be. It should be we should get that one before the season, and then in like March or something, once all the NFL stuff, everything's over. Like let's just sign then. Is high school coaches. If guys are already signed, like what that could potentially do to the high school, to their senior season in high school, of like these guys have literally signed with the University of Alabama. There's no point in even playing my senior season in high school. I think you could definitely see that sort of thing kind of if guys are actually signed. It's one thing to be committed, but if you're like it's like a senior, senioritis. Once you've been accepted to Harvard, there's literally no reason to do any of the other things in your final however many months of school. You've been accepted to the college. So I don't know how much that would affect the NCAA's decision making. I think it's got to be weighed in, but that's a repercussion that I hadn't even really considered until I heard someone bring that up recently.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that either. And I wonder, part of it's just not going to be. I don't think we're going to find a one-shoe-fits-all kind of deal here. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be completely happy, whether it's coaches, players, universities, on National Signing Day, because the portal and everything else where, like, numbers are affected, where classes start in early January for a lot of folks. And if you're transferring, like, now transfers play a role in National Signing Day. They play a huge role for a lot of schools, where you'll see some classes have, like, 30-something kids, and others have, like, 6 right now. Because they're just cleaning up so much in the portal that it's just, I think because they have to get settled in, a lot of these kids even start and enroll in early January. So they're enrolling early. A lot of these kids are graduating early and starting because you don't want to get behind. Like, that's the other part of it, is like you need to be ready for spring walkthroughs, get in the weight room, get in the conditioning program, the nutrition program. And it's all expedited. But then I think like the Aaron Carters of the world benefit from National Signing Day being after the early portion being after the season, because like Aaron Carter ended up being a borderline 5-star linebacker. He like started the year as a running back, Matt Green, was like committed to Memphis out of Tennessee. And then he became a guy where Alabama was dying to get him and locked in as a linebacker in this class because he played so well and flashed so much as a senior at linebacker in this new position. And Tennessee was able to hold on and keep him. But, like, that's the kind of stuff that even the senior years can make or break these kids. So it's like, even if that's maybe one of the issues of pushing up an early signing day, because if they had done that, like, it's totally different. He had already signed his letter of intent to Memphis to play running back. He doesn't blow up like that, and he doesn't have this opportunity to play SEC football and show, like, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that will ever happen either, because there are these kids senior year, they pop and are completely different prospects going from 3 to 5-star, 3 to 4, whatever, and they need to play to move up. But like you said, the ones who, and I think it's mostly quarterbacks, where like Nico didn't move up really all that much by putting on some senior year tape this year, or Arch didn't need to play his senior year to change his ranking or where he was going. But I think for a lot of kids, they need that big senior year because their offers change on a dime depending on how they finish out.
Well, a lot of them definitely need it for sure. And I mean, it's definitely a something that would happen with the elite of the elite in the country. But those high school football programs are like, this is our state championship team. We have a D1 running back this year. So yeah, I mean, and that's just one aspect of it. So it's who knows where it goes from there.
For sure. The big one though, or big two that we were wondering about, was Juice Robinson, who does not take Deuce Robinson, excuse me. I keep calling him Juice. There's a wrestler named Juice Robinson. Deuce Robinson. People were wondering if he was going to wind up at Georgia along with the other tight end who ended up going to Georgia. Is that correct?
No, he committed to USC.
That's the one who's taking the mission trip for 2 years, right? Is it Walter Lyons?
Walker Lyons, I believe is his name.
So Georgia doesn't get either. I mean, it's still wait and see with Robinson, but he's not going to commit.
Deuce Robinson's a big-time baseball player, apparently. Yeah. So he wants to see when he gets drafted, I guess, potentially actually be a professional baseball player. So I guess he's that good at baseball. But according to Steve Wiltfong, like if he signs with someone, he still thinks Georgia's the favorite. But I mean, if he plays baseball, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
That's weird too, because like, I guess it doesn't matter at Georgia, like you said, if he does wind up at Georgia, because it's not like he was going to play as a freshman anyway. They have a rotation, and they have it's a very deep position at the University of Georgia right now. So it's one of those where if he does not go through spring workouts and enroll early and do all that, it's like, it doesn't really matter, because he wasn't really going to be counted on to play. It's going to be Delp and Bowers running the show there at the tight end spot as a freshman. So if he
Georgia
does end up
signed, I think 2 of the top like 8 tight ends in the country without Deuce Robinson. So he was just going to kind of be the cherry on top. He is the number 1 ranked tight end in the country. Georgia did get I want to say Ellis Robinson, I believe, number 1 corner in the country for the 2024 class on signing day. So
the 4th.
It's Ellis Robinson the 4th, yeah.
Yeah, y'all have a thing for the 4th. The Bennett.
Hey, whatever works. I'm all for it. But this signing, like you said, I think I saw a stat that 5 of the top 24/7 were uncommitted going into National Signing Day, into quote unquote National Signing Day. Yeah, it's just it's not what it once was. I was glad I got to at least experience it one time before it like changed forever.
I love Jaden Rashada to Arizona State, though. You get Drew Pine this year as a bridge guy for Kenny Dillingham in year 1, but I kind of like that. I like identities. Like, I like conference identities, Matt Green. And the SEC is just talent identity now, where you look at the map where just the amount of top 247 sports recruits for this 2023 class, how many of them sign with SEC schools, which is just insane. And like the Big Ten didn't do well when you look at it. I forgot the actual full-on graph showing it, but you're like, man, this collection of talent in the Southeast is just completely different than anywhere else in the country, and that's their identity. But like, the Pac-12 has developed an identity, Matt Green. They're just like, we're QBU. Like, all the good, like, you think about it, Alabama gets their quarterback from the West Coast, Tennessee gets their quarterback from the West Coast. Georgia right now doesn't, but I mean, JT Daniels was thought to be that guy, and they went West Coast QB hunting not too long ago, and that's where a lot of these guys are. But then they all DJ goes back. Jaden Rashada doesn't end up at Florida. He ends up at Arizona State. You look around the league, like Dante Moore at UCLA. We'll see what happens with the kid who's rumored to be favoring Georgia now, who was originally committed to Ohio State. What is it, Raiola?
Yeah, Raiola. I think he's from Arizona.
I think so. But a lot of these kids are West Coast kids. Like, the 5-star quarterbacks seem to be coming more and more out of the West Coast, which is interesting to monitor. And if these Pac-12, that's like the way for the Pac-12 basically to stay relevant, right? Like, that was something I was thinking about, where I'm like, that is how they stay relevant with the talent, the dearth of talent they have compared to the average SEC school. The way you kind of overcompensate and have a chance is if you have a Heisman type quarterback, because then you're like, all right, well, if he has the game of his life, there is a possibility that they could hang with them because they have that kind of special quarterback. And you look up and down the Pac-12 right now, they've done a great job developing quarterback depth, but also just, these are going to be some loaded quarterback, like this is just going to be a loaded quarterback conference. And it's not just the right now, but it's the future. And they've done a really good job. So I'm very excited to see what the arms race looks like at quarterback in the Pac-12, because it seems like that's where they've kind of found their groove, is like, hey, we're not going to be the SEC unless you're Oregon, because Oregon is getting a lot of these guys. But outside of Oregon, Oregon
got that quarterback from Alabama. All right, that's he was born and raised down in the Southeast.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think it's pretty interesting. What do you think of the QBU identity that the Pac-12 is kind of establishing here, Matt Green?
I mean, they got to do something. I think that's the biggest difference just in the last, decade plus of what the Pac-12 has been, is that it got so bad in that conference that USC wasn't even keeping the elite talent home. Yeah. And you were just seeing so many elite prospects through the years just leave the West Coast altogether. It's like Oregon had, their kind of years of taking some of that elite talent from California, but it's like they weren't keeping a lot of it either. A lot of it was just leaving the West Coast altogether. So, yeah, we know there's talent out in California. So if that conference can keep some of it, and obviously UCLA and USC might take some of that talent with them to the Big Ten, but it's and who else, might join the Big Ten. Who knows what happens with all that? But yeah, I mean, I think it's a bright future. I think we've talked about it a lot. This past year, how good the Pac-12 was, and with what they're bringing back in 2023, it's going to be one of the best conferences in college football, I think, next year.
I would agree. Bama, over the last week, they've been busy. Nick Saban has been busy, Matt Green. They make a new DC and OC hire, sir. Kevin Steele leaves Miami, so Miami is now down an OC and a DC heading into year 2 for Mario Cristobal in that group. Kind of weird, kind of something to monitor as a college football fan, what's going to go on with Miami this offseason. But Tommy Rees, who 2 years ago had that video that someone posted of him, like, my heart is here, to the players because he was a Notre Dame guy, and my heart was in Notre Dame, and I know he loves it, but the pull of Nick Saban was too much for Tommy Rees to say no. And Tommy Rees, the Notre Dame alum, OC for the last couple of years, stayed on. I know Brian Kelly tried to hire him when he first got the LSU job and bring him over. He elected to stay at his alma mater with Marcus Freeman. He's now out, and we'll get into how this affects Sam Hartman, who just transferred to Notre Dame and to basically play, because Marcus Freeman is a defensive-minded guy. He's not calling plays. Like, he came for Tommy Rees, and that opportunity to play for him is now out the door. So we'll see what happens there. But it's interesting. I didn't have either of these two being the two guys that Bama ultimately ended up with. I think this is pretty surprising. I think some of the takes it's interesting to see around the league. Bama fans don't seem all that enthralled by both hires, but where are you at with Bama choosing Kevin Steele to take over the defense here from Pete Golding and Tommy Rees to take over the offense?
Well, I hope this doesn't undercut my entire opinion, but Nick Saban knows a little bit more about football than I do. I just want to put that out there to start with. So I trust that he knows what he's doing. I'll just say that from the jump. Tommy Rees just was very surprising when I first heard it. Like, it's not that it's a bad hire, but it's like you look at Notre Dame's offense the last couple of years, and it's like, that's not what I was expecting Alabama to get. Like, for Alabama to be like, oh, what they're doing up there? Yeah, bring that down to Tuscaloosa. But obviously, Alabama's got way better players than Notre Dame. I don't necessarily know what the quarterback situation is, but I trust it's going to be better than what Notre Dame was. We know the way Alabama's recruited, the offensive line, the skill players, like all of that. It's going to be better than what Notre Dame is doing. So that's going to make any offensive coordinator's job easier right off the bat. But I mean, we talked about some of those names, like the Scott Frosts of the world, like just some of these kind of bigger names, like the rehabilitation clinic, that coaching clinic that Tuscaloosa has been. I kind of expected one of those bigger names, a guy who's been a head coach, coming the next time through to be a coordinator. That's why Tommy Rees just kind of surprised me. Like, it's not that it's a bad hire. And like you said, Brian Kelly tried to get this guy last year. I think Brian Kelly and Nick Saban are two of the 4-5 best coaches in college football. And if they want him as offensive coordinator, I imagine he knows what he's doing. Kevin Steele, on the other hand, it's like he feels like such a retread, and so that's why I feel like Alabama fans, this is just, what am I trying to say? Uncharted territory for Alabama fans. Like, they're just not used to like going and getting the regular hire. It's like we hit a home run with every hire. We get Jeremy Pruitt as our DC when Kirby Smart leaves us. It's like
we get Lane Kiffin.
Exactly. We get Lane Kiffin. We get Steve Sarkisian, like these Bill O'Brien, guys who have been NFL head coaches. Like, and to get a guy like Kevin Steele, who was really good at Auburn, he like for a 5-6 year period there. I mean, I think he's been at Auburn multiple times.
He was a good interim head coach at Tennessee for a couple weeks there in January after the Jeremy Pruitt firing.
I think we'll all remember the Kevin Steele Tennessee tenure. But yeah, so he has been a good DC, but it just doesn't feel like the home run grand slam hire that every Nick Saban hire seems to be. So I think that's why Alabama fans are probably sitting here like, what is this? Are we just like a regular good program now? Are we not just like head and shoulders the best? What's going on?
I think that's the best way of looking at it, is like, if any other school like hired Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele as your DC and OC combination, you're like, That worked out pretty well. Like, for most schools would take that. Like, most schools would be like, it's pretty solid. It's a good foundation. I trust both those guys. I don't know if they're the elite of the elite, but I mean, they're probably top 15 in both sides. Like, I would say you could do way worse than either of those two, running the offense or defense.
And coaching Alabama's players, I think is going to make both of those coaches look a lot better than maybe they've ever been.
I do think it's funny, though, where, like, Bama fans it seemed like they were just so unanimous in wanting to move on from both Golding and especially Bill O'Brien. They were upset with Bill O'Brien this year, all year. I don't know how you look at it any other way, where I'm like, I think it's a downgrade, right? Like, I think Tommy Rees is not better than Bill O'Brien. Like, Bill O'Brien has never had a bad offense. You go through Houston, the issues with Houston and Bill O'Brien was not the offense. It was him getting personnel control and making a lot of bad trades. Like, that was the issue. It was never like what his offenses were.
And apparently rubbing people the wrong way kind of in Houston as a personality types thing.
But it was X and O's, and like, he knows offense. Like, the offenses were good. This Bama team was top 6 in offense this year. This was not an issue. Tommy Rees has never sniffed a top 6 offense. And like you said, he's never played with Alabama players, but Notre Dame's recruited well. It's not like they haven't had a bunch of talent. I think what it signifies to me bringing Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees is Nick Saban's like pivoting. Nick Saban's going, we've done a lot of the fun stuff, a lot of the score a bunch of points, flashy Alabama football. I've adapted with Tua and Bryce Young and company. We're going back to the A.J. McCarron era. Ty Simpson is going to be A.J. McCarron 2.0. We are going to run the ball down your throats because that's what Notre Dame has done over the years. They've had good running backs. They play ball control. They play very physical brand of football. At Notre Dame, Brian Kelly did that. Marcus Freeman just did that this past year. They play really strong defense. We're going to build from our offensive line. Like, Notre Dame has pumped out a bunch of NFL players in the offensive line. They've developed really well there. Tight ends, they develop really well. I think they're pivoting. I think this signals to me is Saban like, nope, too flashy. I'm going back to what won me a lot of football games early on, and we are going to play ball control offense. Kevin Steele is just going to be a guy. We're going to have a very physical, tenacious defense. We're not going to go up a bunch of points. We're not going to play with a bunch of tempo. We are going to just put our best players out there, keep the ball control, and out physical you, and make your life a living hell. That's what this signifies to me. Is they're going back to the old school to me, Matt Green.
I mean, that would be pretty radical if he was really going old school. Like, I mean, if you talk like if what you're saying is true, then that means Nick Saban is looking at Georgia and Kirby Smart and saying like, that's what we need to be doing.
I think that's what he is. That's what I'm saying.
Like,
I think
Kirby
that's
Smart basically built Georgia the way Alabama used to be built. Yes. And Alabama's like, we should go back to the way Georgia's doing it.
We don't have to play flashy. We have better players than everybody else. We're going to play that.
I mean, obviously Georgia's won 2 national championships 2 years in a row, but there's nothing about Alabama's style that is preventing them from winning national championships. I mean, they just did it in 2020 with, you know, the number 1 offense in college football. Like, I don't know if they were number 1 overall points per game. I want to say they were.
Wait, who was?
Alabama in 2020.
Yes, they were.
I mean,
in 2020 with Mac Jones, they were, yeah.
That's just 2 years ago. And with Tua, like, setting records in the SEC in 2018, obviously got blasted by Clemson in the national championship, but, like, they made the national championship game. So I feel like there's no, especially you look at Georgia, like, there's no reason to go back to A.J. McCarron days. Like, you just have to fix the defense. Like, Georgia, if anything, Georgia is getting more in the tempo and the more high tempo offense and everything, but just still playing elite defense and never gave up running the ball, always being a complementary type style. So it's not like Alabama has to go back to the A.J. McCarron days, the Greg McElroy days. Like, you have to start playing elite defense again. I think that's the biggest difference. It's like because it's never going to be a bad thing to be dropping 45 points on somebody. Like, I mean, that's still. But Alabama, the last few years, they've been good defensively. They're just not used to being good. They're used to being elite defensively. So they, like, Golding's had some, 10th ranked defenses, 15th ranked defenses that are like that's really good. like me and my brother were going through it. I think about like the Mark Richt days, like think about 2011 and 2012. Like, oh yeah, those were years we had like a great defense, and like Georgia had like the 20th ranked defenses those years. It's like we had no idea what elite even was back then. It's like Alabama defense, it's truly elite, and so when they're only really good, everyone's calling for the guy's job. So I think what this honestly says to me, these hires kind of going back, is maybe Golding really did just leave on his own and Alabama didn't have a plan of how to replace him, because not that Kevin Steele's not a good hire.
Same is true with Bill O'Brien, by the way, I would say.
Yeah, and maybe these guys just felt the pressure and kind of felt pushed out. I mean, but Bill O'Brien didn't take another job, did he?
No, yeah, he took the Patriots job. He's the Patriots offensive coordinator.
Oh, he's Patriots OC.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, they could have just been blindsided. Like, it was kind of painted as, oh, Alabama wants to move on. They're going to go find a new job and they'll replace them. But
because they have that cachet. Like, they had that cachet to be like, oh, they were ready to move on, and they were going to go get Joe Brady and whoever, and we're going to bring Jeremy Pruitt back in, and we're going to co-DC Jeremy Pruitt and, like, I don't know, insert elite defense. Like, Dave Aranda's going to resign from Baylor, and he's going to be the co-DC with whatever. But it's like, then you see the report that he flew to Saban and Bama flew to Washington, right, to interview their OC Grubb, who's been with Kalen DeBoer forever, and you're like, oh. The big names aren't coming. The Joe Brady's and the Cliff Kingsburys are not coming.
And there was Grantham talk, and then he took the job with the Saints. It's like, who knows if he was really offered the job, you know? You never really know. And I'm not making a prediction here.
Yeah.
And I want that to be clear. But if you remember 2015, Brian Schottenheimer with Georgia, it basically signified the end of Mark Richt's tenure. And, you know, maybe that's not fair to Brian Schottenheimer. They just got 1 year, and Georgia didn't have great talent at quarterback.
No, we have a whole decade plus of Brian Schottenheimer offenses.
For sure. Everyone's got their opinion of Brian Schottenheimer. But Nick Saban, like, this isn't his offense, right? So I feel like it's for him to be changing it up, like with Kiffin and Sarkisian, it felt like a lot of kind of overlap, like it's same stylistic type thing. Bill O'Brien, just like kind of a lot of the same blood, at least. Tommy Rees seems completely different. So this feels like super important to get this hire right, because like you look at, not that any pressure is on Nick Saban on the hot seat or anything, but just in terms of what Alabama wants to continue to be moving forward, like these offensive skill players were not what Alabama always has, every year. Like these receivers were very subpar for Alabama standards. Jahmyr Gibbs was a baller until whatever happened kind of down the stretch. He kind of became less involved in the game plan. He's gone, right? He's to the NFL. So it's like Bryce Young is gone. This offense is going to look very different, and it doesn't, like, as amazing as the recruiting stars have been, because like the next 3 years, I should say these past three classes, 23, 22, and 21, like they're three of like the top 7 classes in like 24/7 history. So like I think there's 19 5-stars. Obviously some of those are on defense. But like these classes are loaded, but we haven't necessarily seen the same level of like elite talent in Alabama's like skill players. Like obviously excluding Bryce Young, he was a baller, but you know, so I think that there's a low key a lot of pressure on Tommy Rees coming in to kind of really, you know, put his identity on this offense.
It's never great when like Tim Brown, the legend, said, quote, after the hire to Bama, "This is a great day for Irish football, and maybe even a better day for Tommy Rees. I've been around a lot of offenses, but the Irish offense last year, with maybe the exception of the North Carolina game, was extremely predictable. Seeing the offense struggle told me at least 2 things. One, Tommy was very dependent on Kelly, and more important, he didn't have the ability to dissect a defense. What we saw is what I call hero ball. You have a player, Meyer, who he's talking about here, who is better than the person covering, and you throw him the ball a zillion times."
Wow.
Like, it's never good.
That's from Tim Brown?
Yeah, Tim Brown tweeted all that. And
Tim Brown doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would just run his mouth either. Yeah. He seems like a real thoughtful guy.
And I think he wants the best for Notre Dame football. And he's like, this is probably the best.
Wow.
I don't think it's great when Notre Dame fans are like, oh, we can revamp this offense now. Who can we get? Who can we get to take over this offense with Sam Hartman and company? Like, I think this is if it wasn't Bama, man, I think everybody would be like, I don't know. I think this is a step back. I think the hires on both sides, there is a real possibility this is a step back for both. This is a huge gamble for Nick Saban to bet on Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele in 2023 because Notre Dame's offense, Matt, do you remember who they lost to at home this past year?
They lost to Marshall, right?
Marshall and Stanford.
Oh, the Stanford. That was probably worse than Marshall.
That's what I'm saying. Like this, I don't know, man. Like I'm surprised that Nick Saban and Bama couldn't do better than both of these two. And I think both are fine. You could even say, you could tell me on Kevin Steele's an A-, DC. I think you could tell me on that A-. I wouldn't say he's an A+, but like A or A-. Rees is like a solid, like best case scenario with Bama players, B. But I would say he's more towards the C+ range. And I don't know, man. This is going to be fascinating. I'm way more interested. You know what's never great? When the rivals of your fan base or of other fan bases are like, I'm not as scared about playing Bama anymore. Like, I'm not as afraid of Josh Heupel having to match Tommy Rees. I'm not as concerned about that. I wouldn't
go crazy, though. I think Kevin Steele has been a very good DC.
No, but the offense, like, are they going to score enough? Are they going to be able to score enough?
But I think there's only a few teams that can play that style of
ground and pound, physical, no turnovers, run it down your throats, that sort of thing.
Exactly. You just have to recruit a certain level of athlete to be able to even consider playing that style. And Alabama does get those type players. So I'm not going to just rule it out.
But it's clear that they didn't have a direction either, right? Because that's the under talked about thing for me, and this last thing we'll touch on it before we move on. But like, he went over to Grubb at UW. They run the air raid. Like, they got points. For him to pivot from him to Tommy Rees tells me there was no, like, ideological plan here, right? Like, he didn't have, like, one kind of offensive philosophy that he was zoned in on and wanting to... I don't know, man. I think that's something to consider, too, is that Washington's offense is very, very different than what Notre Dame's running.
However, there is something to be said for the quarterback play that Notre Dame's had the last couple years. Has just been pretty awful. Like, obviously a coach can make quarterbacks look better, but sometimes if the talent's not there, the talent's not there. So it's like, maybe Tommy Rees has a certain philosophy that he just wasn't even able to implement because of the lack of personnel at Notre Dame. So you never know.
Texas and Oklahoma, we do know, it looks like, are not going to make the jump to the SEC until 2025, Matt Green. Does this excite you? What does this mean for Texas, Oklahoma? Do you think they even get a Big 12 win championship in the next 2 years? Like, I think this is going to be interesting to monitor, and I'm glad. Like, we're going to get 2 years of Texas and OU in the Super Big 12. I think this is going to be fun. I'm glad we're at least getting 2. I'm a year-by-year guy. This is going to be fun.
I'm with you there because the 1 year is just going to be like, I don't know. You remember that 1 year of the Big 12 was just like 16 teams and it was just or 14, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, the fact that we get 2 years, it's like that's like an era. It's like there was the one era where we just had the Super Big 12 there for a couple of years. But honestly, I think they're gonna watch this play for 2 years and be like, what the hell did we just do? Like, this conference was going to be so much fun. And Oklahoma and Texas are the Big 12. So it's going to take a lot of getting used to with them being SEC teams. I've tried to figure out, like, obviously I'm not an investigatory journalist by any means, but I've been just trying to figure out, like, why did this fall through? Like, or why are they not able to jump ship early, basically. And everyone just says, like, TV contract, the negotiations, couldn't figure out, wait. And I just don't think Oklahoma and Texas wanted to figure out a way to jump out early. Honestly, I think with what Oklahoma in 2021, Oklahoma been like, hell yes, let's jump right now. Let's go to the SEC tomorrow. And right now today, Oklahoma's like, I don't know if we want to rush anything. Let's take it easy. Let's work on us, before we join the SEC. So I don't know. I don't think there's much motivation to make it happen, but it'll be a fun couple years.
Yeah, I also think it's just Ross Dellinger, who does great speaking of investigatory journalism. It's a weird thing to say fast, but he does really great reporting for SI.com, and he had tweeted this on the 3rd. Quote, Texas and OU and Big 12 legacy schools agree they should split early, yet an agreement hasn't happened. Inside the mess, how TV networks control the fate of negotiations. Quote, we sold our souls to the devil, says 180, but we love our TV paycheck.
There it is. I mean, they're pretty much running the sport. And I think that's why a lot of people, if TV networks are going to run the sport, then it's like, let's at least have multiple networks running the sport and not just one network running the sport. That would probably be more ideal. But yeah, I guess that answers it right there.
Man, it's just kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But Gonzaga is still rumored to be back a Big 12 joiner for basketball. We'll see what the Big 12 looks like following this. I'm still more optimistic about the future of the Big 12 after the Texas OU exit than I am the Pac-12. Like once USC and UCLA dip, I still just think it's gonna get murky, and I just refuse to believe that it's just going to be 2 California schools in the Big Ten by themselves with nobody else, and they're just having to play this crazy travel schedule. Like you're not going to sell me on that being the final 2. There's just no way. I think the Pac-12 is now up against it because they're going to pull a couple more. Like Cal and Stanford are making the Big Ten at the bare minimum. Like I don't see a path that they don't get in there too.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Oh man, I don't want to be a old man yelling at clouds, but
I think all college football fans, like even like when you hear
there's a region, the sport is broken up regionally.
Yeah, and I think everyone agrees, but it's like everything comes down to like, well, just the money. You're like, okay, so it's just that's it. No one's actually happy with any of these decisions. Like I think even UCLA and USC are like, no, if the money was the same, we would probably like I guarantee you they would say we're obviously going to stay in the Pac-12. Like if the money's the same and all that kind of stuff, like. Yeah, but it's not.
Without a doubt. And what Kevin Warren, is that his name?
Yeah, who's now gone.
And this guy, just like brings in this monumental, just landscape changing of college sports. It's like I'm gonna go work for the Bears now.
Yeah, they don't have a commish right now, which tells me though things are gonna slow down for a while. I think this is it for a little bit of time once Texas and OU make the jump and USC and USC and UCLA make the jump. I think we're going to have, fingers crossed, several years of normalcy.
Props to the Big 12 for at least like acting the way they did and getting 4 really solid programs to replace. Obviously, they're 2 juggernauts, nowhere close to any of those programs in terms of history, but definitely improved like the overall strength of the conference.
And they were like, they found it. Comes back to identity, man. They found their identity. They're basketball. Like they are a basketball first conference now, and they are loading up. Memphis will probably eventually make the jump. Gonzaga, like they're like, football's probably out of reach now with Texas and OU dipping out of here. We're not going to catch the SEC in the Big Ten. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a super basketball conference and win that way. And I think
it's like strategy. Oklahoma had 3 or 4 playoff appearances. Texas had 0. Once they leave, I mean, TCU's got 1, and they even have a win, and Cincinnati's got 1. So, the Big 12 still got a little bit of history there.
For sure. Matt Green, transfer portal winners. The main event here on this edition of the program. I got a couple for you. We got 6 here, and we'll do our losers next week. Now the portal's closed up until May when you get a 2-week window after spring practice and all that, and we'll see who enters. But I don't think it's going to be that many compared to what we just saw for December to January at this point. But Matt Green, some winners for – I think we have to start here with the biggest winner for me. And the biggest winner is FSU, I think, in the portal. I don't think anybody did better than FSU. That's one of the biggest ways that Mike Norvell has really rebuilt this program at FSU. He's recruited really well of late. I mean, he almost had Travis Hunter, the number 1 kid in the class last year. Obviously, a last-minute swing to Jackson State and is now on his way to Colorado. But he's done well.
Man,
Jared
that
Verse.
feels like ancient history, and he was committed for so long too.
And now you have Jared Verse, who looks like he's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft when he comes out next year. He was a great find in the Northeast. That was not on a lot of folks' radar. And then you go through it, man. Matt, like, that's who I've really, really just been impressed by what they have been able to do. Florida State has just collected so much talent here. I want to pull some of the biggest names here in a second, but you get Kezia Holmes from Penn State. Jaheim Bell is a big one from South Carolina, which was a stunner to a lot of folks. You get Kyler Morlock also, so they're just building tight end U. That's who Tennessee really wanted, the shorter kid. He was one of the big ones from this transfer class, which is funny to say. There really is a transfer class now. And then the other big one for me, Ventrell Cypress, the second from UVA, coming in conference, who was a lockdown corner at Virginia this past year. I just love what they've done. I think they're already contenders to make the playoff going into the year with Jordan Travis and company coming back, Benson and all that. But they're loaded, man, and they have just cleaned up in the portal. And I think if you're a Florida State fan, you're really excited because it's always going to be easy to recruit in the state of Florida when you're a Florida school. And now to maximize the transfer portal the way Norvell has, I think is very impressive. And I can't say enough glowing remarks about what he has done in Tallahassee and how quickly he's turned this thing around. And they should be right there with Clemson going into next year as the co-favorites to win the ACC and make the college football playoff. I think they're in an incredible position to do so.
Yeah, I agree completely. They got like you said, Ventrell Cypress. He's the fourth ranked player according to 24/7 in the portal. They have 3 of the top 15 guys in the portal committed. So, for whatever those rankings are worth, they tell us a little bit of something. Try to make sense of this crazy world that is the transfer portal. But I've obviously we've talked at length about Jaheim Bell. He's just a Swiss Army knife, the way they can use them. I think he really sets off their offense. I think, like you said, the 2023 for Florida State, it wasn't the quickest rebuild, though, I will say. It took a little bit of patience. But with what Florida State's been the last few years, they needed some patience. So, Florida State, this could be the year. I think they're going to be preseason, I think, 6, 7? Like, they're definitely preseason top 10 next year.
For sure, top 10. I think they'll be somewhere, and I mean, still be on 5, 6. I don't know. I guess it depends on where they put Clemson.
I think the Orange Bowl soured a lot of people on.
But they also had a Garrett Riley.
That's fair. I think the Cade Klubnik era was looking a lot hotter after that ACC championship win. But
hate to see it. Was that a Tennessee win? Was that a Tennessee blowout win, Matt Green?
Is that who won? I can't remember who won that. The orangest of all Orange Bowls, but. Yeah, I think that definitely dampened the expectations a little bit on Clemson. So Florida State feels like they have the momentum coming in, and this is what you're able to do. Not only bring in a good signing class, but just be able to bring in some dudes that are ready just to play right from day one.
Give me a winner for you, Matt Green, that you've been impressed with this cycle.
I mean, I think you have to look at Colorado before anybody. It's just absurd what Colorado is doing in the transfer portal. 24 guys they've gotten committed, and obviously Travis Hunter, the number 1 player from the 2022 class, coming with Deion from Jackson State. But I think this is why Deion had to have that conversation that he had when he walked into that complex. He's like, I'm bringing the groceries with me. I don't know whatever his term was, but it was like, yeah, I'm going to bring in a lot of players. I did not recruit one guy in this room right now. You might want to look somewhere else. And I'm sure some of those guys took that as a personal challenge and, are going to try to stick it out at Colorado. But, they needed a complete overhaul of the roster, and this is a pretty good start.
Shedeur Sanders, I'm very, very intrigued by seeing what he looks like on the Power 5 level. Like, this is a huge jump. Like, he's a 4-star kid, very talented, but it's one thing to go from G5 to Power 5. He's going from FCS to Power 5. Like, this is a huge jump. And that's the other thing, too. Like, you talk about the players, there's a lot of Jackson State players who made the jump. Like, there's a lot of Jackson State players who followed him. So it's like, Yeah, he got in a lot of transfers, but these are a lot of FCS kids that he's bringing in. You have a Missouri State in here. You have several Kent State guys because he brought like Sean Lewis, who was the head coach at Kent State, so he brought in some of those guys. A lot of transfers, but it's like when you look past Travis Hunter, then you're like, all right. I mean, yeah, Kendrick Breedlove from Ole Miss. We'll see how he is. Miles Slusher from Arkansas. You get linebackers from Clemson and Alabama who didn't really play, Kennedy and Bentley. But like, I mean, the vast majority are small schools, FCS guys, and then you have the huge, just let's see what happens here with Shedeur Sanders, where he'll define a lot of this class. But Travis Hunter, we know is going to be awesome, and he'll translate like he was going to be a Power 5 player no matter what. But like Jimmy Horn, I'm curious about. Really talented kid. Jimmy Horn, his father being a legendary Saints and NFL receiver. He's coming in from USF. Very interested there. But like Kavosier Smoke was not good at Kentucky. Like I don't think he's going to really move the needle. And even when you say the number 20, what was it, 24, Matt Green? Is it 24?
Yeah, 24 total.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Dion is doing a great job here right out of the gate. Like Cormani McLean's coming in here. He gets the number 1 DB in back-to-back classes to follow him to where he's coaching. Like Dion is going to recruit well. I think if he stays at Colorado, Colorado will be a juggernaut in college ball the next 3 to 4 years. This is still not going to be a talented roster. Like you're going to have some talented players on this roster, but the vast majority are still those guys who are sticking around from the Carl Durrell 11-1 season or 1-11 season. Like that's still the vast majority of these players who really were rough. Like this situation was pretty rough the last couple of years in Boulder. It's going to take time. Like I believe in what Dion's doing, and I believe in Dion the coach. I just think people will see that in like the transfer turnover, and then he signs Cormani McLean, and this class looks really good. And you have some 2024 and 2025 kids committing, and it looks great. Like those are all promising. I just think people who are expecting like 8-9 wins or whatever for this Colorado team because they cleaned up in the portal a little bit. I'm like, I still think if they make a bowl game, he did a great job in year 1. I think it's going to be tough. That schedule is not easy, and I still think the roster, you have the bright spots, the young upside, the Shedeurs and the Travis Hunters and company, but like I don't think the players are there to because the Pac-12 is loaded with quarterback play and good players, and their non-conference schedule isn't easy. So I don't know. I think they did well, but I also think people might be a little overzealous on how well. Like they didn't do better than Florida State for me. They didn't do better than a couple of the
Well,
other
but that's
schools
the
on our
thing. It's like it's a completely different standard, right? It's like they're not going to be competing to win anything. Like Florida State, we're talking like this is
the
a
march
team,
for Florida State. It's the march to a CFP.
This is a team
Colorado
that
is
could
a march
definitely,
to 6.
Yeah, they're one that's expecting to make the college football playoff next year.
Yeah.
Like he overturned this roster so much in 1 year. Like they actually are expecting to make a bowl game now.
Yeah.
So it's and that's the thing about
Which is possible.
And that's the thing about college football is it's like Travis Hunter is this golden goose, and like don't get me wrong, the guy could be a superstar player, but it's like in his freshman year at Jackson State, he didn't necessarily show that he was just like the best player in all of FCS or anything. You know what I mean? So you get this guy for 2 more years. It's like this team is going to be a, you know, whatever they are this year if they make a bowl game, and then Travis Hunter's a junior. Then you gotta start all over. You gotta continue to bring in this elite talent year after year, and so
Which I think obviously he'll do if he sticks around. Like I think if Dion's at Colorado for 5 to 6 years, whatever, then yeah, I think he'll get there. I just think it's not going to happen as quickly as some folks seem to think on Twitter. Like I just don't think it's going to be this.
Didn't you just say
great.
They'd be a juggernaut in 4 or 5 years though?
Yeah, no, that's not quick. I'm saying year 1, year 2, like kind of what you're saying. Where it doesn't happen like that. This is the Power 5, and there's just a lot of talent in this league, and there is just. I don't know.
Even to be a juggernaut in 4 to 5 years for what Colorado football has been.
Yeah, well, I'm saying a juggernaut
plus.
for the Pac-12. Like I think he can compete with USC pretty quickly because he can compete for those kids. Like he can compete on the recruiting trail against the USC, but they'll be gone. So like that's the other thing is USC and UCLA are out of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're the favorites in 3 years. I mean, depending on what Oregon looks like and all that, but I don't know. I think Dion is making strides. If you're a Colorado fan, you have every reason to be excited. This is an exciting time to be a Buff fan. But year 1, it's like march for 6. Like I just don't think the talent's there right now. I think they have good pieces. They don't have a full team. Football is a full team game, man. It's not one guy. Yeah.
But in terms of this, I feel like what they're doing in the portal is just like it's insane for them to even think after 1-11. Like literally, they may have been the worst team in all of Power 5 last year. I actually don't even really think it's close. I think they were the worst team in all of Power 5 last year. There's probably half the teams in the G5 that could have beat them last year. So, yeah, the Shedeur Sanders, that is the question mark. It's like, are they a team that's even interesting next year, or is it still really, really bad?
Another one I have on my list. You're going to be surprised. Have you heard about this? Have you seen this? The Tennessee Volunteers, I think, are transfer portal winners, Matt Green.
Is that right?
They are. I think they did a really good job. They filled a bunch of needs. The thing about the portal now, when you're a Power 5 school and like with Heupel, he had to obviously spend a lot of time in the portal in year one because you had so many guys exit following the Pruitt stuff that you just had to replenish a lot of guys to the portal. Now, when you've had a couple of classes under your belt, they signed 25, 26, whatever it was, commits for this 2023 class. They're the deepest they've ever been in the Heupel era. Now you kind of get to be a little bit more choosy in where you go. McCallan Castles, I think, is going to be a really good player from Cal Poly. They get him as tight end. He'll start with Jacob Moore. Dante Thornton, huge. Track speed, super tall, made some plays, already a lot of experience at Oregon. Like, he fills that Jalen Hyatt role. Him and Squirrel White and then Brew McCoy is probably going to be your 3 starters. So you get another starter there because you lost a lot of talent, a lot of production. Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt out the door in the NFL. Then you get Andre Karich from Texas. He was an offensive tackle there, probably going to play inside. He'll probably start for Carvin, who graduates and moves on to the NFL. That's a starter. John Campbell from Miami. He is a multi-year starter for Miami. Right tackle. Darnell Wright in the NFL draft. Campbell played with Joe Milton in high school. Already there. Then you get Keenan Peely, older kid from BYU, married, a lot of experience, was a great player 2 years ago at BYU, tore his ACL, did not have as great of a year. He's rehabbing, all that kind of stuff. But you lost Jeremy Banks to the pros. Hey, another just guy who you can start next to Aaron Beasley next year. Plug and play. Should be good. And the last one, Gabe Judy Lawley from BYU as well. He played at Vanderbilt for a little bit, 4-star kid. He's going to probably start at corner. Like, you just got a bunch of starters to fill some gaps to the NFL, and I think all are going to be pretty good players. Some might pop more than others, but I'm very impressed by like how targeted Tennessee was just filling NFL gaps with these guys. And I think they're all going to play, and they're all going to be pretty talented guys who should contribute as this 2023 class and 2022 class continues to develop and get ready to fill those slots, because that's the goal, right? When you're at Georgia, you have to have these stop gaps for these guys to be in the conditioning program, the nutrition program, the weight training for a couple years, and then they're ready to play. So Tennessee's closing in on that for a lot of these guys, but you still need some veteran depth across the country to fill out your last little bits for the portal. And I think Tennessee did a really good job.
And I think if you're truly going to be one of the contenders in college football, you're never going to be in the top 5 winners of the transfer portal, because you shouldn't have to get 6, 7, 8 key players out of the portal. Like from that same respect, like Georgia, I think has gotten 3 guys out of the portal. It's like 80 Mitchell transfers, and you brought in 2. Obviously, Ra Thomas has potential legal stuff going on, but assuming just with none of that on the table, it's like Georgia brought in 2 of the top 3 or 4 receivers in the portal. As well as you lost a Jaheim Singletary, a 4-star, borderline 5-star corner from the 2022 class, and you get Smoke Bowie, who was a 2022 borderline 4-star, 5-star corner. So it's like for the guys you lost, you basically made up for, and you look at Georgia, obviously coming off 2 national titles, not a lot of weaknesses on the program, period, and what they did have, they filled in the portal.
Does that feel weird when you say that out loud, coming off 2 national titles for your team? Does that not just feel weird saying out loud?
Absolutely, man. It's that's why Georgia fans, if you see them on Twitter, that's why they don't know how to act. It's we're used to being super close. Also rocking my World Series gear for the Braves. It's like just experiencing all these championships. It's definitely something to get used to. But yeah, it's a weird spot to be in when you're number one because you don't necessarily know that you have to get better to win it all again, right? It's like when if you finish top 5, finish top 10, you know you got to do X, Y, Z to get better. It's like when you're number one, well, considering Georgia won the national championship by 58 points, obviously they beat Ohio State by 1. It's like they could have been a lot worse and potentially still won the national championship. So the margin for error is a little bit different, obviously, when you're that talented. But it's definitely something to get used to. But yeah, Georgia. I wasn't gonna say Georgia was one of my winners. I just I thought of that while you were talking about Tennessee. But yeah, Georgia definitely just filled a couple spots. But another one, LSU, is one because they signed. Like I said, for whatever these rankings are worth, I still don't know what exactly to do with these transfer portal rankings. But LSU is the number one class according to 24/7 with 11 guys out of the portal, 8 of which are 4 stars. And so I think that's big for LSU. Like they just won the SEC West year 1 of Brian Kelly, like way ahead of schedule, and to now go get some guys like that could potentially contribute from day one, along with signing like a top 5
corners. They got 4 day 1 starter corners: Denver Harris from A&M, Zy Alexander, Deuce Chestnut, and J.K. Johnson.
And they signed the 6th ranked class in the country this year, too. So it's like LSU, like there was so much made of Brian Kelly fitting the culture. It's like the culture is football. And if you can be a good football coach, the guys are gonna come to play to LSU.
Are they? So, I think they're the favorites to go back-to-back, right?
Right now, it's hard for me to say Alabama's the favorite. I think there's just so much.
Don't we like LSU more? I think I'm bigger on LSU right now.
I think I am as well. I think LSU, we usually see that kind of uptick in year 2 of any head coach, especially a good one. And, with Jaden Daniels coming back, LSU's definitely got a lot of reasons to be optimistic.
Butte came back too, right?
Yeah, he did. He is coming back.
I think LSU's the favorite to win the SEC West again. And I think it would not surprise me in the least that if we get Georgia and LSU both in the college football playoff next year. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
I could see it. LSU still did, they had some bad showings last year.
Year 1, though. They won the West and 10 wins in year 1. Brian Kelly, I don't know, man.
I think Oregon is another one that I've been pleased with in the portal. I think you got 2 starters from Alabama.
Oh, in the portal. I thought you were going with the CFP. I was like, I don't know about that.
And then Jordan Birch as well from South
Carolina.
Well,
hold on. Before you can, was there anyone else from... Because they added a bunch. Basically LSU, all they got was Aaron Anderson offensively. But then everybody else is defense. They clearly had an idea of, Brian Kelly was like, we're going to load up on the defense. We're LSU, and we're fine with our skill talent on offense, and skill players already want to come to LSU, right? And there's already so many in their backyard, the Odell Beckhams of the world. But they really filled out the rest of this defense. I think if you're an LSU fan, you're very, very excited about year 2 for Brian Kelly. I think the ceiling is pretty high for this group. They could win the title next year. It would not would that floor you if Jaden Daniels had a Heisman type year and LSU won the title?
No, I think we said last week. I think that's a solid
that's an early good bet
as far as long shot Heisman. But I think as soon as the national championship odds come out, LSU's got to be up there, right? Top 5, top 10.
I would think so.
As far as long shot, not super long shot, but just odds fun enough to play. I think LSU is definitely they're definitely a team that's got a shot.
For sure. Matt Green, you mentioned Oregon. Why is Oregon a winner for you?
I like I said, they got 2 Alabama starters at a portal with Trayshawn Holden and who is it? Jackson, the corner. I'm blanking on his name off the top of my head.
Oh, Kyrie Jackson.
Yeah, and then also Jordan Birch out of South Carolina.
That was huge. Oregon, I think that's the biggest one. Is Jordan Birch from South Carolina.
I don't think Oregon had a lot of weaknesses either. So having Bo Nix come back, I feel like Oregon seems like that team that definitely will have college football playoff hopes coming into next season.
Bo Nix is back. There's talent everywhere for sure.
And it's been well documented how many of the good teams in college football are replacing their quarterbacks coming into next season. Oregon is not one of those. So that right there gives them a little continuity that a lot of the other big-time programs aren't going to have.
UCLA is a winner for me. Chip Kelly has done a really good job. He's another one of these coaches who's done a really good job. Even if recruiting hasn't been as high as he may have wanted it to be. He gets Colin Schlee from Kent State, who leaves obviously because his coach just left to go be the OC at Colorado. Put up bonkers numbers for Kent State last year. We'll see how it translates to the Power 5 level, but like you lose DTR, you have Dante Moore waiting in the wings, you flip him from Oregon, and Dante Moore is going to be ready to go year 2 out of the gate, but you get a good bridge guy who can still put up big numbers in Chip Kelly's scheme. You get a great player, running back in Carson Steele from Ball State. You get Cal's good wide receiver, J. Marco Sertimant. You get Kyle Ford from your rival, USC. I don't know. I like a lot of these guys. You get Keanu Williams from Oregon. I don't know. I look at what UCLA has done, and I'm very intrigued by what Chip Kelly... I mean, Chip Kelly's just solid, man. Like, he's just keeping this thing humming in Bruin country. So good job by you, Chip Kelly, because I think it's another good group, and I think they're not going to have that big of a fall off post DTR.
So you're saying Dante Moore's not starting year 1?
No, I think it's Colin Schlee.
Okay, I see ya. Yeah, I don't hate that class. I think they got a lot of. I mean, I just like you said, I trust Chip Kelly with what he's been doing at UCLA. They're getting better and better each year. Yeah, I like it.
One other big one I wanted to mention. It's not even a winner. I just think this is something we need to talk about. Did you hear how Kiffin described his quarterback room?
No, I didn't hear this.
Okay. I love Lane Kiffin, big Lane Kiffin guy. He just got a dog. Posting about that on Twitter. He's got a little puppy, golden retriever. Forgot what he named him. Not Zeus, but it's something like that. But just Kiffin's great. Love Lane Kiffin. He talked about it where he's like, he kept saying it's like the NFL when he was describing bringing in Spencer Sanders to compete with Jackson Dart. He's like, I brought in the veteran to compete with the incumbent starter, and then I brought in the guy to come in, learn, sit for a year, my draft pick. Like I think he said the word draft pick when describing Walker Howard and bringing him in, which I thought like it was just a minute and a half of just really interesting sound bites. And Kiffin, obviously being a former NFL head coach, his dad was DC for so many different franchises over the years, just a legendary defensive mind. And I think that's how a lot of these guys like it. It's not how they look at the other position groups, I think, across the league. And this is something I'm worried about with Tennessee, man. Joe Milton and Nico, that's it. Like then you have walk-on Gaston Moore and preferred walk-on, the new kid, 3-star freshman, but he's a true freshman coming in from Tennessee. Like there's no depth. Like Georgia's an outlier with the 3 2, or I guess 1 5-star and 2 4-stars, right? I guess is the consensus for your quarterback room right now. And that's rare. Lane Kiffin's like, I like Jackson Dart. He showed some stuff down the stretch, but like, it's hard, man. Like if I have an opportunity to bring in QB talent year to year, like my job is to win football games. And if I think I can upgrade, even if I like my guy, guess what? They can just leave anyway. So if you rest on your laurels that this guy is my guy and I found it and I don't have to worry about quarterback anymore, that's not the era that we're in for most schools. You need to have a fail-safe if things go awry. And people are like, well, Jackson, like that's the thing that people have been saying about Jackson Dart is like, oh, he's going to enter the portal in May. Jackson Dart's already transferred. He transferred from USC to Ole Miss. He already burned his 1 year. He will not graduate. He will not be a grad transfer by the time May rolls around. He would have to sit out a year if he transfers in May. He will not play immediately wherever he goes after this. We're now at the point where the COVID players will be gone, and I don't think we're going to see as crazy of movement as we've seen the last 2 years. I think it's going to slow down a little bit. But like if you're Lane Kiffin, this is amazing. You get a guy who you know has put up a bunch of points, been a Heisman almost like a year ago, where Oklahoma State was on the verge of making the playoff with Spencer Sanders as their starting quarterback. You have this guy who's going to come in and push the guy that you like too. But like if Spencer Sanders beats out Jackson Dart, hey, I have a better quarterback than I did a year ago, and I still brought in the guy who's ready to go, who's a borderline 5-star in Walker Howard, who knows that he's not going to play this year and will be the favorite to be the job next year. But guess what? He's going to bring in competition for Walker Howard next year. Like, he's going to say it's Walker Howard's, but like, I have to have fail-safe guys because the quarterback position is so volatile and so many of these guys transfer because they're looking to start and do, like, you have to have other guys. So people who are killing Lane Kiffin for bringing in Sanders and Howard, I'm like, that's the era we're in. He's maximizing this era. He knows he has to do this because if Jackson Dart's bad, he doesn't want to have to just throw in Walker Howard, who's not ready. Like, he wants to have another bet.
And that's why this is a two-way street. And that's why we've talked about how I think we're going to see college football kind of normalize in the next few years. It's like we had all these changes all at once that it was hard to know which are the ones that are like turning the sport upside down or whatever. But this portal era, like you said, like Georgia a couple years ago, they had to get Stetson Bennett out of junior college to have a second scholarship quarterback after Justin Fields left. It's like it's so hard to keep multiple quality scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. And if all of these players are going to be looking at what the grass is greener over here, over there, well, you're damn sure the programs are going to do it too. And they're going to say, oh, how good are you? Well, we might could get a slight upgrade. So we're going to bring in the guy from Oklahoma State. So, it's
nothing personal. You would do the same on the other side.
Exactly. It's the nature of the beast. If Jackson Dart could have a slightly better deal somewhere else and maybe make a little more money and also be a guaranteed starter and maybe a better offensive coordinator or something, maybe Lane Kiffin's one of the best there is. But you know what I mean? Just a situation that was just a little bit better. He might go jump ship and do that. A lot of guys would. And so you're seeing the program do the same thing. Like, we had an okay quarterback last year. We think we can have an even better one. Or, like you said, maybe he beats out Spencer Sanders and, turns out he actually is a pretty good player. So it's, I think programs are going to have to do this. It's going to be so hard to keep multiple quality options at quarterback on your roster year in and year out.
So when they fall in your lap and Spencer Sanders is like, I'll come. It's like, all right, done. Like, why would I say no to that? If you're
exactly, and that's why one thing when you were talking about like Georgia's quarterback room, them taking someone from the portal or something, I think they are in a situation where it's like we got 3 guys currently that none of them are in the same class. Maybe there's separation enough that they all will consider being here for another year or two. It's like you kind of have to hold on to that if you can, because you go try to get someone out of the portal, you could potentially blow up your entire room. And it's maybe you'll have a better quarterback situation for this season, but you can never guarantee what it is moving forward.
Yeah.
Because I think that's so much of what the quarterback position is. It's so much is about timing. It's like Clemson is so lucky to have, Deshaun Watson, he didn't overlap with Taj Boyd. They didn't have to make a decision there. He didn't overlap with Trevor Lawrence. It's like But sometimes that Fromm and Eason or Fromm and Fields type situation happens where it's a zero-sum game. Like if one guy's the starter, the other guy's leaving. So it makes it even trickier from a roster management perspective.
Yeah, I think Tennessee made a mistake. They could still add somebody else post spring. But I don't think you can. If you could avoid just having Joe and Nico be your only options, you need to do that. Like you're an injury away from just catastrophic issues.
That's true. But if you are a 19, 20-year-old, 18-year-old that wants to play college football, supposed to play Division I, a quarterback at Division I level, like, how are you going to look at Tennessee as an attractive spot? You're like, well, they have a senior starting probably this year and then a potential superstar that's a freshman. I most likely will never play there. I'm going to go somewhere else.
It's an open competition, though, but you can beat out Joe. Like, that's the thing. Is like it's the same thing with Jackson where you're like, are you sure you saw enough that Joe Milton is a 1,000%?
But no high school senior right now is thinking they can beat out Nico and
100%.
Joe.
Nico, no one's coming. Like, the young kids like that. There's a reason that the 2024 quarterback. It's just, yes. But a super senior, like a Spencer Sanders type, like.
See, that's even worse. At least a high schooler has the option of redshirting, then being behind Nico. He goes pro early. It's like,
because you're only getting 2 years of Nico.
If I'm a junior or senior right now, I'm definitely not looking at somewhere who's got not a guaranteed.
Can you imagine
starter
a kid
as
at Texas?
Senior?
Like, I'm gonna go follow Quinn Ewers and let me check my notes here. Arch Manning. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get on the field anytime soon in Austin.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you've, with all the options you're weighing in the portal, I don't think Tennessee's a very good destination if you're wanting to play as a junior or a senior right now.
I'm still just bitter. Maybe he's a grad transfer. Sam Hartman, come on down. You lost your OC that you committed to. Sam Hartman, QB1 this fall. And
that's another thing. I meant to say that while we were on the topic of Sam Hartman. Like, this is why we have to do something about this calendar. Like, because this guy commits to Notre Dame, and now the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame isn't even there. It's like maybe because he is in the portal, he has to be somewhere by the spring semester anyway. So maybe there's no way to really police this type of situation.
I think because he's a grad transfer, he can leave again and still play this fall. I'm pretty certain grad transfers can bounce like twice. Like
even if he
yes
hasn't graduated from the program he's currently at?
Yes, I think he can leave because he's a graduate transfer because he just has the eligibility. Like I think those guys can actually leave. So I think Sam Hartman, I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty certain he can leave again if he wants to and play this fall.
And, maybe it wasn't all about Tommy Rees. Just playing quarterback at Notre Dame, they felt kind of a quarterback away. Like they had a lot of stuff around them. They've been a quality team.
I mean, he's the best quarterback they've had in like a decade.
So, maybe it was more than just Tommy Rees. But I don't know. I feel like if I'm the quarterback, the OC is going to be a big reason why I'm choosing where I'm going to play for the final year of my college career.
I would agree. All right, Matt Green, that was a fun exercise.
Yeah, it was good stuff, man. The portal, it's and there's still more to happen too. It's like you look at all the guys that are still uncommitted in the portal, and it's I don't know. This is a crazy era we're living in.
For sure. Well, next week on the pod we'll do transfer portal losers, and I'm sure all kinds of other news and notes that we can talk about in the college football calendar. It's a year-round sport. More craziness will pop up in the next week or so. So look out for all that on this program. Matt, follow him on Twitter, Matt_W_Green, all that good stuff. And, like us on YouTube, watch us on YouTube, listen on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, all the good stuff. Email us, chasethemospodcast@gmail.com, all that good stuff. But for that guy down there in Tequila, Georgia, Matt Green, for myself up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, that is all we've got, and I will talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.